Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Yoma Daf Nun Gimel contains one Mishnah. The Daf brings a couple of drashas about the activities of the Kohen Gadol in Kodesh Kodashim, being makriv of the Ketores, a couple of limudim from Sukkim, about how he put the Ketores on the fire, and when he was violating an Isser that would be liable to the death penalty, and disagreement with Tzedukim. The Gemara then moves into how he walked out. The Gemara will discuss how he walked out backwards and how many situations one should be walking out backwards, not forwards. The Gemara will then speak about the end of Shemona Esrei and the halachos of taking steps backwards there. The Gemara will move on to discuss the tefillah that the Kohen Gadol said after he left, what exactly he said. Then we'll get to the Mishnah, which will describe the next steps in the avoda, that of the blood of the par and the sire, and how it was performed. And the Gemara afterwards will discuss where the Aron is today and what happened to it. So first of all, the Gemara says that as the pasuk describes V'nasan es ha-ketores al ha'esh lifnei Hashem, he should put the ketores on the fire, and that has to be lifnei Hashem, only inside the Kodesh Kodashim. That is a clear rebuke to the Tzedukim, who think that you're supposed to put it on outside the Kodesh Kodashim and then carry it in already smoked. Now, the Tzedukim claim that they see that from the words ki be'anon eroeh ala kaparos. You have to be bringing a cloud with you in order for you to see me on the kapor. So the Kohen Gadol is supposed to be already bringing a cloud of ketoros in with him, but that's not correct. And the Chachamim said to the Tzedukim, they said the pasuk says clearly, "V'nasan es ketoros al eish lefnei Hashem." You only put the ketoros on the coals in the Kodesh Kodashim already. Now the Gemara brings another pasuk. The Gemara says, what then do we do with the pasuk that they have of ki be'anon eroeh al ha'kaporos? The Gemara says ki be'anon eroeh al ha'kaporos is to teach me that you have to put in maloshin. You have to create a cloud, and you have to put in the special herb that makes the smoke go straight up, as the Gemara will describe later in a brisa. When there was maloshin, it would go straight up until it hit the ceiling, then it would spread out all along the ceiling, it would come down the walls and fill the room with a cloud. So you needed to put maloshin in there. The Gemara brings another pasuk that you needed to put maloshin, and that's that it says v'chisa ana ketoros es ha'kaporos. You have to cover the cloud. The cloud of ketoros should cover the kaporos. The Gemara later will discuss why we need these two psukim for the same source, that you should put in maloshin. The Gemara now though says that since you have to put in maloshin, if the Kohen Gadol does not put in maloshin, or if he's missing any of the ingredients, he's chayav misa, he violates the death penalty. He's obligated to the death penalty min hashamayim, that is for not performing ketoros correctly. The halacha is that any Kohen who leaves part of the ketoros out gets the death penalty. So Gemara says there's a different problem here. The Torah said that he's only allowed to come into the Kodesh Kodashim if he's bringing the ketores, if he's bringing a proper ketores. It says bezos yove aron al kodesh. He can only come in with this. So he should be violating the death penalty already. He should be liable to the death penalty already just for bringing a lacking ketores into the Kodesh Kodashim. There was no excuse for him to come in if he doesn't have the proper ketores with him. So what do you have to tell me that if he is makriv the ketores with a missing ingredient, he's liable to the death penalty? By just coming into the Kodesh Kodashim without a full complement of ketores ingredients, he's already liable to the death penalty. So Gemara says there are two situations in which it would make a difference. Number one is if he came in b'shogig, he did not realize that he was missing an ingredient, he would not get the death penalty for coming in missing. However, if then he realizes and he goes ahead and he puts the ketoros on the coals without all the ingredients, he would get the death penalty for that. Another situation might be is if he comes in with all the ingredients, but he doesn't put them all on the coals. Perhaps he has two sets of ketoros, one has full ingredients and one has missing ingredients, and he comes in with both of them. So he came in with the proper ketoros, but he put the missing ingredients compounding on the ketores, on the coals, and therefore he violates the Isser there. And that's what we learn from that special pasuk that says he gets the death penalty for doing ketores wrong without the maloshin or any other missing ingredient. Okay, now the Gemara says that you had two psukim. You had the pasuk of Inasan. We had ki be'anon era and v'chisa anan. Why do you need two psukim? Gemara offers five perhaps 6 different reasons why you may need 2 psukim. The Gemara first says, one is to tell you that you can use not only the root of the Mala Asham, you could, not only the leaves of the Mala Asham plant, but you could even use the roots of the Mala Asham plant. The Gemara rejects that because the root is actually more effective than the leaves of the Mala Asham plant. The Gemara quotes a brisa that describes, as we said earlier, how the smoke filled the room if you use the root of the Mala Asham plant. And even if you use the leaves. So you see the root is better. So the Gemara says, okay, the other way. It's to tell you not only are you allowed to use the root of the Mala Asham plant, you could even do it with the leaves of the Mala Asham plant. The Gemara's second option is one pasuk is to tell you should do it this way in the Midbar, in the Mishkan in the Midbar. The other one is to tell you that even the Mishkan Shiloh or the Beis HaMikdash, you still should do it the same way. The Gemara rejects that. The Gemara says we have a different source for that. And it says V'chein Yaseb Al-Moed to tell you that you should do the same thing in all the different types of Batei Mikdash. So the Gemara goes on to a fourth approach, which says one pasuk is to tell you this is how you do the Ketoros on Yom Kippur. Another one is to tell you for all Ketoros to every day of the year. A fifth approach is, one is to tell you that this is a mitzvah, and the other is to tell you that if you don't do it properly, it's ma'akev, you're not yaitza. And the sixth potential answer is, one is to tell you that it's a warning, azhara, you have to do it the right way, and the other is to tell you that if you don't do it the right way, he'll be chayiv misa for that. There is an onesh of misa. Now the Gemara points out that this is splitting up of how the azhara and the onesh were communicated. It says here in the description of the Yom Kippur service, both the warning, you have to do it correctly, and that if you don't do it correctly, it'll cause misa. So the Gemara says, these two things were not both said at the same time. One was said before the death of Aaron's sons, and one was said after the deaths of Aaron's sons. How do you know? Something had to be said before the deaths of Aaron's sons, because it says, Acharei mos shnei bnei Aaron. It was after the deaths of Aaron's sons that this parsha was actually said. So it's got to be that something was said afterwards. How do you know something was said before? Because later it says, Ki be'anon eiro'eh al hakaparas. Hashem says, in this cloud I will be seen on the kaparas. However, on the day of the death of Aaron's sons, it was already seen, as the pasuk describes, that the presence, the covet of Hashem appeared on the Mishkan and on the Kapor. So this obviously had to be saying before, because it says in the future I will appear. So one was before, one was after. So the warning was before, and the description of the punishment was said after. Question then is you couldn't give Aaron's sons Misa for coming into the Kodesh Kodashim unauthorized if the warning was only said and not the description of what the punishment will be. So the Gemara says, so that was not the reason that they died. What then was the reason that they died? It's because they paskin the halacha without consulting Moshe Rabbeinu, and like it says that they brought a fire in because they said, look, the pasuk says that you should bring a fire, that to imply that even though a fire comes down from Shemayim, you're still supposed to bring a regular fire as well. That happens to be correct halacha. However, they didn't consult Moshe Rabbeinu. The Talmud, who does not consult his Rebbe, brings destruction to the world and is liable to the death penalty for that if he's on the level, and that's what happened over there. Okay, now the Gemara moves on to discuss the Kohen Gadol leaving the Kodesh Kodashim. That we'd seen in the Mishnah, he goes out the way he came in. So the Gemara says he actually goes out in reverse. He doesn't turn around and walk out. He backs out, stepping backwards. Gemara says, how do you know that? A pasuk in Devar Yamim discussing Shlomo HaMelech. It says that Shlomo HaMelech went to the Mizbeach that was in Givon, Yerushalayim. The Gemara says Givon and Yerushalayim were nowhere near each other. What's Givon and Yerushalayim? It means to say that just as he went to Givon, facing a Givon, when he left Givon and went to Yerushalayim, he was also facing a Givon. Meaning to say he went backwards away from the Mizbeach. So departing Hashem, he went backwards. And everybody also is supposed to go backwards, leaving the Beis HaMikdash. Kohanim, leaving their avodah, will go out backwards. Leviim, leaving their platform where they stand, go backwards, and Yisraelim, who represented Kal Yisrael at the Karban Tamid, also have to go out backwards. Now, they can turn their face so they see where they're going, but they don't turn all the way around and turn their backs. Now, the Gemara also says that any Talmud who leaves his Rebbe also should not turn his face. He should walk out backwards. He's allowed to see where he's going, but he should walk out in reverse steps. The Gemara says that whenever Rabbi Elazar parted from Rabbi Yechanan, he would do this. Depending on who was leaving, how he would behave. If Rabbi Yechanan was leaving, he would stand still until he couldn't see Rabbi Yechanan anymore, and he would bow. If Rabbi Elazar was the one who was leaving, he would walk out backwards until he could not see Rabbi Yechanan anymore, then he would turn around. Now, Rava did an even more extreme level of this when he left Rabbi Yosef. He would walk out facing front, so he couldn't even see where he was going until his legs knocked into the threshold of Rav Yochanan's house, and they became filled with his blood because he kept getting bruised on his legs. Now Rav Yosef was not aware of all this because Rav Yosef was blind, and when they told it to Rav Yosef, he said, that's wonderful. See the schus of Rava, he gave him a bracha, he should be the head of the entire city where he is. Now the Gemara goes to the halachos of somebody ending Shemona Esrei. The Gemara quotes Rav Alexandri named Rav Yeshua ben Levi. You have to take 3 steps backwards at the end of Shemona Esrei, and afterwards you do what's called Yitain Shalom. Machlokes Rishonim, if that means you say Shalom to Hashem or Shalom to the person near you to indicate that you've ended your Shemona Esrei. Now the Gemara adds, and Mordechai says that you have to stand there in place. You cannot just walk away, take 3 steps back, and then leave. You have to stand in that place for some time. Otherwise, he's undoing the 3 steps back that he took. And the Gemara compares it to a dog who vomits, and then he goes back and he eats his own vomit. So you're going back to your previous situation. You're undoing the accomplishment of walking away if you go right back to where you were before. Gemara quotes a brisa that says a very similar thing about the 3 steps backwards. Gemara adds, somebody who does not do so is better off not davening Shemona Esrei altogether. Now, the Gemara says halacha from Rav Shmaya that he should give shalom. It means he's supposed to bow. So he should first to the right, then to the left. I didn't know that the right's more important than the left. So Gemara brings 2 psukim. Mi minoi eish das lamai. That Hashem Kilu gave the Torah with his right hand, kaviyachol, and yipol mitzidcha elef. 1,000 will fall on your side and 10,000 on your right side. So right is stronger than left, and right is more important than left. So Gemara says, why do I need 2 psukim? Gemara says, well, if I only had minei eish das lamai, I may think people naturally give things with the right hand, and therefore we use that expression for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Soda is actually better that we need the description of the 10,000 on the right and just the 1,000 on the left. Now the Gemara says that Rava saw that Abaye was bowing to his own right and then to his own left, and he said, no, not your right and your left is the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's right and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's left, which means you bow first to your left and then to your right, because that is the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's right, and then your left, Kilu, he is facing you, Kaviyachal. Now, the Gemara adds that when Avchia, brother of Huna, saw that Abaye and Rava, that would take their steps back, they would do it in one bow. That is, they would bow and take all 3 steps back in that one shot. The Gemara now refers back to the Mishnah and discusses the tefillah that it says that the Kohen Gadol used to say when he left the Kodesh Kodashim. It was a short tefillah, we said, so as not to scare Kal Yisrael. So what was the tefillah that he said? So the Gemara first says the tefillah that he said was that the weather should be good. It should be hot and rainy. The Gemara says hot. Why is that a bracha? Who wants hot weather? The Gemara says no. What he said was that if the weather is going to be hot, it should at least be rainy, counteract the heat and provide water for the crops. The Gemara adds, Rava adds some more tefillah that he said perhaps that the rulership should not depart from the Reish Galusa, the Jewish ruler who ruled those who were in Galus still at the time, and the Klal Yisrael should not require help from others to be mefarnes them. They should have their own economy, should be thriving, they should have their own support, and that Hashem should not listen to the prayers of the people who travel on the road, because they often say, make it stop raining, and we do need the rain. The Gemara quotes an interesting incident about that. The Gemara says, Rav Chanina ben Doisa was traveling, and it was raining on him, and he said, Hashem, is it right that the entire world should be comfortable with the rain, and I'm here on the road, and I'm suffering? So the rain stopped. And when he got home, he said, Hashem, is it right that I should be comfortable because I'm here at home, and I don't need the rain, and the rest of the world is busy suffering because they want rain and it's not raining for them. So the rain started again. So the Gemara comments, apparently the tefillah of the Kohen Gadol not to listen to the prayers of the travelers and what they want with the rain is not effective against Rav Chanina ben Doisa. The Gemara quotes a brisa that says it was an incident with a Kohen Gadol. He's also identified as Shimon HaTzadik, that he was in his tefillah, he stretched for too long, and now the Kohanim got worried, and they went into the Beis HaMikdash to look for him to see if he was okay, and he met them just on the way out. He was just leaving when they came in, and they said, why did you be mispalel for so long? We were getting nervous. And he said, well, you're upset that I davened for you and on the Beis HaMikdash, so it shouldn't be destroyed. So they said to him, don't do that too often, because as we've seen in the predecessor, at least, of the Mishnayos, the Kohen Gadol should not be mispalel too long, so as not to scare Klal Yisrael. Okay, this concludes the Gemara and the Mishnah. We get to our next Mishnah. The Mishnah describes the further steps that happened, but before, it speaks about what happened when the Aron was missing. So the Gemara says that the Aron was taken away at some point, and from then he would not place the coals and the ketores in front of the Aron, but he would put it on the spot that was there. And the Gemara says there was a stone there called Evan Shasiya, and it was 3 tfachim, 3 fingers. It protruded above the ground level, and he would put the coals and the ketores on the Evan Shasiya. Okay, what happened when he left? So it says that he went to the one who was holding the blood of the par, who was mixing it so that it shouldn't become hardened, and he took the blood of the par. He went back in the Kodesh Kodashim and he sprinkled it. He stood in the place where he stood before, and he sprinkled it towards the kapores, if the kapores was there, or in that place where it used to be, if it wasn't there, if the Aron was missing. Now the sprinkling was 1 up and 7 down. The Gemara says he did not aim. The Mishnah says he did not aim carefully. He just did 1 higher and all the other ones progressively lower. And he counted as follows. He counted 1 up, the 1, and then every time he counted the lower ones, he said 1 and. So he said 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5, 1 and 6, 1 and 7. Okay, then he finished. He went back out again, and he put the blood on a golden stand to hold it. And then they brought him the sa'ir, the goat that was supposed to be the carbon chatas l'Hashem. They brought it to him between the ulam and the mizbeach. He shachted it, caught the blood, went back inside, did the same procedure with the sprinkling, came back out, and now he put this blood on the stand. This is machlokas if it was a different stand or if it was on the same stand, and therefore he had to pick up the blood of the par before he could put down the blood of the sar. Anyway, he took the blood of the par, went back towards the parochas. This time he did not go inside the parochas, he just sprinkled on the parochas, in front of the parochas. The same procedure, 1 up and 7 down. Came back out, switched again. He took the blood of the sawyer and did the same sprinkling on the parochas. They went back out again, and now he had 2 bowls of blood. So he poured the blood from the par into the blood of the sawyer, and then the Mishnah says he put the full one in the empty one, which we'll see what that means exactly if he put the kli in the kli or if he poured from one kli into the other one. Simple shot is that he poured the one that had both bloods into the other one, so it should be fully mixed in all of them. So now the Gemara says, if you look carefully at the wording of the Mishnah, it does not say that the Aron was hidden. It says that the Aron was taken. That sounds different than what we said on the daf earlier, yesterday's daf, that the Aron was actually hidden in Geniza underneath the Kodesh HaKodashim. This sounds like it was taken away. So the Gemara says, yes, there is actually machlokas about it. Was the Aron taken away by Nebuchadnezzar and sent into exile, or was the Aron hidden? And there are actually a number of psukim that support the conclusion that the Aron was taken away. Like the pasuk which says, the turn of the year, Shalach HaMelech Nebuchadnezzar sent Vayeviel Bavela, and he brought him to Bavel, referring to one of the Malchi Yisrael, Im Kleichem Nas Beis Hashem, with the precious kalim of the Beis Hashem. So that sounds like he took the precious things. He took the Aron. Another pasuk that supports that. This one's brought by Hashem Echai. Says, "Hine yam b'ayim v'nisa kol Hashem b'veisecha asher atza v'veisecha ad hayom hazeh Bavel lo yivaser davar Amar Hashem lo yivaser davar." Will not be a single thing left. Davar refers to the Aseres HaDibros, or the Aron which holds the Aseres HaDibros will not be left. Will not be left behind. It will be taken in. Another pasuk that supports this. The Gemara says, "Vayetzim Yibas Tzion kol hadara." It left from the daughter of Tzion all her beauty, all her hadara. Where it says that refers to hadara and the chedra, the beauty that was in the inner sanctum, the inner chamber, referring to the Kodesh Kodashim and referring to the Aron. Where it says there are psukim though that say the other way, that seem to indicate that it was hidden where it was. The Gemara quotes one of them. Pasuk in Malachim says, "Vayarichu habadim vayiro Rashi habadim in hakodesh al pnei hadvir." When we're first discussing the installing of the Aron in the Kodesh Kodashim, it says that the poles were too long and they poked into the paroches. V'lo yera achutza, you didn't actually see the poles outside; it was covered by the paroches, but he did see their impression. It says it was there until this day. Until this day, the Gemara says, sounds like it's there forever. Anytime somebody reads this, he could say it's there until this day, and it'll be true, so it's there forever. That means somewhere around there, the Aron still is. It was not ever taken away. Now, the Gemara will discuss this more at length on the next daf.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.